Tanzania was one of the 3 East African countries awarded the hosting rights for the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations in September. The success of the joint bid alongside Kenya and Uganda was one of the biggest stories of the year in the football mad nation. Analysts now say the 2027 AFCON will go beyond giving Tanzania an opportunity to raise its profile and earn tourist dollars. CGTN's Isaac Lukando has more.
Tanzania, Kenya and Uganda have 4 years to prepare for the jointly hosted 2027 Africa Cup of Nations finals. Besides contributing 3 world-class stadiums for the tournament, Tanzania also brings experience in running football at a high level to the table.
When you look at the other leagues, apart from South Africa, apart from the Egyptian league, I think we are one of the leagues that pays well. We have a broadcasting now. Our match has been televised everywhere in the country, even in Africa. So you can see we're in that position now. You can consider this is a very serious country when it comes to sports.
The governments of Tanzania, Kenya and Uganda have already started discussion on the cost of staging the tournament and other key items such as marketing, branding and security. To get the go-ahead to stage the tournament, the 3 co-hosts must place about $30 million each with the Confederation of African Football by 2025 as a financial guarantee. For Tanzania, winning the rights to host the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations alongside its neighbors is not just a major achievement and a boost for the nation's pride. It also opens up a new realm of possibility for the country's national team, Taifa Stars, which is yet to make an appearance at the World Cup. The major concern among local fans is the performance of the national team in the competition.
It's impossible for us to win, but I can't rule out that we can't win, but we need to go there to learn. I think that's what the government thinking. We need to learn, TFF thinking, we need to learn, everyone thinking this is a good opportunity for us to learn and to grow as a country. As these football clubs now, they're paying these players, foreigners, we need to have a lot of Tanzanian players also to playing outside, who plays here, get paid where. It's going to help us in many ways.
Tanzania has the only CAF-approved stadium so far among the 2027 AFCON co-hosts and recently hosted the inaugural African Football League. Because of this, local analysts expect the opening and closing matches of the tournament to be played in the country. They hope that along with an economic boost, the tournament will bring greater growth for football in Tanzania and the East African region at large. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
All right, let's now shift gears and talk about the biggest news this year for East Africa, the hosting rights for the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations. Darren and David are right back here with us. Welcome back to the program. We've got some questions for both of you that require very brief responses. Darren, let's start with you. The economic and sporting realities are making it harder for sporting tournaments to find hosts. 2027 AFCON, for example, will be the first ever to be hosted by 3 different countries. What are your thoughts on that? Quickly, Darren.
First of all, I think it's increasingly becoming harder for African countries to host major championships because of infrastructure and not because of will. Even if will plays a really, really big key, especially from the governments, infrastructure is the big burden that most of the countries face, especially in the aftermath of the expansion of the tournament from 16 to 24 teams. That's why you actually realize there were ramifications because CAF had already announced the hosts of the Africa Cup of Nations from 2017 up to around 2023. But because of the expansion from 16 to 24 teams, that eventually became quite harder. But I think when there is government will and cohesion among different countries, it is easier to host these tournaments. East Africa, first of all, there's been the will to host it because one, this side of the continent has desired to, have a say on African football. And by hosting a tournament of this nature, and perhaps if you roll back just a few weeks ago where Tanzania played host to the launch of the Africa Football League, the premier competition for the top 8 club tournaments of the continent. You feel that is one of the things that can as well improve the economies because you cannot earn money as a country if you're only letting it out. You've also got to do something that brings in the incomes. And you realize Ivory Coast has had to spend $1 billion on infrastructure. You feel because the tournament will be shared across 3 countries come 2027, Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania, there have been some meetings to have things streamlined. You feel they may not spend as much, but already they've got to pay a commitment fee of about $30 million to CAF, as we're being told by some of the officials who are to do with the Pamoja bid.
All right, now, David, let's get your thoughts on some of these questions. Tanzania seems to be ahead of neighbors Uganda and Kenya in terms of preparations for AFCON. What is Kenya's preparation and progress report as of this time?
Of course, Kenya starts on the back foot preparation-wise, as you rightly put it, having won the bid to host the 1994 Africa Cup of Nations, you might recall, but failing to host the tournament because of a lack of preparedness. Then years later, in 2018, Kenya again winning the hosting rights for the 2018 Africa Nations Championships. That's the younger sibling of the AFCON tournament. But then again, guess what? The country failed to host the tournament again for lack of preparation. So right now there are some jitters, understandably, below the carpet on whether Kenya will be able to be ready this time around. Tanzania, as you rightly put it, when you look at the bid document, Tanzania appeared to be the most ambitious of the three countries with preparations and maybe a platform or a blueprint to host the tournament in Dar es Salaam City, in Dodoma, in Mwanza, and in Arusha and in Zanzibar as well, in Amman. The venue in Dar es Salaam, the National Stadium in Dar es Salaam already is ready. The Amani Stadium in Zanzibar is ready. So yes, Tanzania a couple of feet away. I think Kenyan fans could have something to say about Tanzania's request to host both the opening and the final game of the tournament. Then closer to home in Uganda as well, there's good work going on at the Nambole Stadium, at the Nachivube Stadium, both in Kampala, which have been earmarked to host the tournament. And then the airport, the international airport, set to be built in Hoima in Western Uganda, of course, some good work going on there. What about Kenya? Well, just last week, the Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba announced the closure of the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, in Nairobi, the 60-seater facility. I'll tell you something, if Kenya is going to host any important match, so to speak, of this tournament, is going to be held there. So the venue has been closed to enable preparations and refurbishment, significant upgrade required there to meet the standards of hosting this tournament. After that, there's the stadium in Eldoret, some 250 kilometers from Nairobi, and the hometown of course, the athletes there. You might know Kenya for the athletic prowess. There is a stadium there that is earmarked to host the venue. Recently, the President of Kenya, William Ruto, suggesting that Kisumu, the lakeside city, also earmarked to host the tournament. Not much has been put in terms of the preparations, apart from just the promises.